Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Healthy Tampa Bay podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kerry Reller, and today we have Lexi Engelbart from Ergodyne here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you because I don't think I've ever had anybody like you on the podcast. So this is going to be great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So I am a product development manager at Ergodyne. There are a team of us. We're each kind of tasked with mitigating a risk. So we work in industrial safety. So construction workers, road workers, manufacturing. So we have a full extensive personal protective equipment line, basically anything from your hard hat, eye protection, hand protection. And then what my specialty is today is mitigating heat stress. So I get with people like yourselves, I talk with end users, frontline workers, kind of discovering what are the issues you're facing on the job, and then what are some of the solutions that we can develop maybe in tandem together. Nobody knows what they need better than the actual frontline worker. So that's kind of our goal at Ergodyne, is to help mitigate risks, be proactive, and in some cases, what can we do in reactive scenarios as well?
Yeah, very, very cool. I think that for me and maybe some of our listeners, when we think of, PPE and personal protective equipment, mostly for me, I'm thinking, the COVID obviously crisis, but
Respirators, yep.
yeah, yeah. But
Hmm.
like you said, it's really important for other types of professions who, need specialized things to help protect them from their jobs. So that's really important. You mentioned, I guess, focusing specifically with heat awareness. So tell me, why are you working to raise awareness for heat safety?
So it is actually the number one weather related killer. So it kills more people than floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes combined. And, a lot of us here in the US, we have AC, we have all this infrastructure. Not everybody has access to that. And we did some studies, we did some research. 4 out of 5 Americans have actually experienced some format of heat stress. And over a quarter of them don't know how to react in that sort of emergency. Obviously, we're in summer and you're in the heart of it in Tampa Bay. It's summer, it's a timely reminder. Heat waves and heat warnings, we keep seeing these happen more frequently. 2024 was named the world's warmest year on record. This year's tracking about the third. It'll be in the top 5 for sure. Point being, the risk is not going anywhere anytime soon. So really what we're doing here with our Project Heat is trying to get more awareness out there, because right, this isn't just an industrial safety concern. This is, people going to their softball games, people going to their kids football games. If you don't know why your body's feeling off, you're more likely to suffer from heat stress. So that's really what we're kind of doing this summer, is raising awareness. It's not just on the job site, taking care of each other, and how do I recognize heat stress in myself as well.
I mean, a couple comments there. So one, I mean, I'm really surprised by the just statistic that it's number one, weather related killer. And, in Tampa, obviously we had a lot of hurricanes recently. And I know you mentioned now and in the summer being worse, but honestly, post hurricane is big risk too, because people don't have power and then they don't have air conditioning and things like that. So we definitely see that come up in our area as well. And then you mentioned 2024 being the highest record. Well, in Tampa recently, they hit 100, and that was definitely record setting as well
Yeah.
in our area. Luckily, I was out of town for that. But and then you mentioned also about football. My husband and I were just discussing recently about how the kids were out there at like a 12:30, 1 o'clock game, and with all the pads and everything. And it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, like that sounded brutal, really. But
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover too between like sports medicine and heat stress. So I do a lot of studying of athletes and that sort of thing too. Like, what are some of their techniques that they use to cool their body down? Can we apply that in an industrial safety setting? So there's actually a ton of crossover, and it just keeps getting, more research, more studies. So it's really exciting to see that people are concerned about it, and it's being made a big deal, which is, it's time finally.
yeah. Well, since you brought it up, I know I went through, growing up playing soccer in this area and it was super hot and we had certain ways to, cool down. But what kind of things do you kind of recommend for those situations?
Yeah, so the number one thing we will always recommend is staying hydrated. Once your body hits a deficit of being dehydrated, it's already too late at that point. So we say drink water at night, maybe skip the energy drink in the morning. Can we swap it out for a flavored water? Everybody has their vices. Mine's coffee. I'm not giving that up anytime soon, but I just need to, adjust my lifestyle accordingly. So a lot of times what we'll say is, do some research on your own. There's certain medications that can exacerbate heat stress. So people with heart conditions, diabetes, the area that we try to cool down the quickest in a heat stress emergency or in a proactive scenario would be our core. So where all of those vital organs are, right? We have 30 minutes if somebody goes down from heat stroke, loses consciousness. We have 30 minutes to act while paramedics are on their way. There's a lot of different solutions, techniques. Hydration is going to be, the thing we promote the most. And as a PPE company, we want PPE to be the last line of defense. We want employers to be looking at, are there engineering controls that we can be pulling? So can we protect people from the hazard? Administrative controls, can we work earlier in the day when it's cooler or later in the day, shifting work schedules, that sort of thing. And then PPE, again, it's the last line of defense because it is personal. It requires wearing it, knowing how it works, and that sort of thing. So, you're in Tampa Bay, high humidity, high temperatures. We have certain solutions that'll work really great in those conditions. And we have other solutions that are, going to be better suited for the dry Phoenix area or something along those lines. So, a lot of people, unless you're brushing elbows with safety professionals or manufacturers who are creating this type of gear, a lot of people don't even know it exists. So it's really, really exciting. We're starting to see it cross over from industrial safety into the weekend warrior. So that's really, really exciting. I would say number one though, hydration, hydration, hydration. And OSHA's been prescribing water, rest, and shade for 20 years. Those are really easy to remember too. Get as much water as you can. When you are taking a rest, try to do it in the shade if possible, because rest breaks are proven ineffective if you aren't actually cooling your body down during the rest break. So that's really what we promote. And then, we have a ton of PPE solutions, but again, we try to lead with the training, the awareness. What can we adjust at the highest level before we start taking it to the individual?
Well, I like that. And that's a really good thing to bring up, the awareness, right? So, what are some of the common heat exhaustion warning signs that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is going to be there's four main HRIs, heat related illnesses. So, heat rash, kind of how it sounds, your sweat ducts get clogged, you'll start to get blisters on your skin. Usually, when that happens, it's because sweat is sitting on your skin. Maybe you're in a super humid environment, there's not airflow, so that sweat isn't getting off the body. So that's a really great thing to look for, those blisters. Another kind of on the opposite spectrum, if somebody's sweating, 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 and then all of a sudden they're not sweating anymore, that is a great sign as well. That's probably creeping into heat exhaustion or close to heat stroke. We lose some cognitive abilities once heat stress starts to affect us. So unfortunately, we have numbers that get reported on incidents and fatalities from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We know that these are super underreported because what tends to happen is, okay, I start to feel sick at work from heat stress. I'm a little dizzy, I'm a little nauseous, but I'm going to go home and figure it out at home. While I'm on my way home, I faint, I crash my car. It gets chalked up to, a struck by or something along those lines. Or you get all the way home, have a cardiac arrest, it gets chalked up to a heart attack. So we know that these numbers that are reported are super, super low. And so that's really, again, why we're trying to hit this awareness and training, looking out for your friends and your coworkers too. Just if somebody, the example I always use is, here's my water bottle. If I'm trying to drink my water like this, something's not right here. So people start using their tools in the wrong way, or they start making decisions that don't really make sense. We start losing cognitive function quickly. And if we go all the way into heat stroke, unconsciousness, dizziness, fainting, we have a 30-minute window to try to cool that body down. So what we always say is step one, get those paramedics on the way. Number two, can we move them to a air conditioned, climate controlled room? Can we put ice packs or phase change on their body? Again, hitting those core areas. Anywhere that you would take a pulse is a really great place to apply cooling PPE as well. And one method we've kind of been promoting, because we have a lot of people that work in super remote job sites. The trailer is a couple of miles away. They can't get back to an air conditioned, their car is parked way over here. So what do we do in this remote emergency? What we've kind of been talking about, and again, this is used in sports medicine, is the TACO method, tarp assisted cooling oscillation. So delicious to eat and a great little acronym to remember for how to cool somebody down in an emergency. So essentially it is a simulated ice bath. So you lay a person down in tarp. Hopefully you have your lunch cooler or a bag of ice or water, something along those lines. Douse the person and just try to keep that cold water moving all over their body. Keep it oscillating. Again, we're trying to cool that core area down, and we would say do that until paramedics arrive. So there's definitely a lot of people that are in these really, really remote areas that not all of these options are feasible. They don't have power, they don't have a fridge, freezer, that sort of thing. So what can we do in those scenarios to keep people ready for these unfortunate emergencies?
So what if they like don't have a tarp or anything? Or any examples of things that they could use instead?
So a lot of people will have like the portable like pop-up shelters. Sometimes, yep, sometimes those tents will have like walls on them.
Mhm.
Tear a wall off the tent. Basically anything, if you can just try to contain somebody in it. If you don't have a tarp, applying ice strategically, try to remove some of the layers, try to get them out of the sun. Anytime we can get people out of direct sun, that is going to be a recommendation as well. It's usually a few degrees cooler in the shade. So yeah, it's hard because quite frankly, not everybody's going to have every supply necessary. And that's why I think is super important with OSHA's proposed rule that they're coming out with. It'll have a lot of recommendations for what people should do proactively and to have a medical emergency plan as well.
Mm. So you mentioned 30 minutes, right? As like what kind of that time frame is. When I think of other types of stroke, I think of like a 90-minute window to get into the hospital to see if they can use like something called TPA. What is the risk of or what's going to happen in 30 minutes if they're not getting starting to be cooled?
Yeah, we've researched, and it's cellular damage, brain damage. Again, those organs can start to fail. So that's what we always prescribe. We're going to err probably on the side of a shortened window just to try to get people to act as quickly as possible. But obviously you're a doctor, so I totally trust your opinion. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about that, probably on another session, but would love your insight on that as well.
Yeah. So what kind of impact do you hope to make with Project Heat?
So kind of what I've said, making sure people understand this is a real issue. Sometimes there is the mantra of pull your bootstraps up and we got to work anyway, so we just got to keep going. There's a lot of concerns about productivity and building infrastructure, and how do we, if I have to take a rest break every hour, how is that feasible for me as an employer to like actually get that into our program. Safety is really can be very boring to some people, but that's why we've kind of tried to take this, a little bit of a sense of humor. Tacos are super easy to remember. You know, a lot of times it's just creating it as part of the culture. It is a risk and it is a serious issue. And, people joke with me because I'm based out of Minnesota. So I did training last week for heat stress awareness. And they're like, well, we're in Minnesota. We have the opposite. I said, typically, yes, we more frequently have to deal with cold stress, but that's exactly why we're not prepared when we do have heat stress here, because we're not used to it. Acclimatization is a big thing we talk about too. So my body being used to the environment that I'm living in, working in, that sort of thing. So again, I'm in Minnesota. If I came down to Tampa Bay next week and tried to work, I would absolutely not make it through a shift. So making sure people, are giving their bodies some grace, some time. Acclimatization will be a requirement likely from OSHA with their federal proposed rule. So again, we have a lot of people that migrant workers, returning workers, they're new to construction, that sort of thing. Their bodies are not used to it. And unfortunately, the incidents and fatalities we tend to see be recorded, they happen within the first 2 weeks of work. Those are when they happen the most frequently. So again, just really trying to get it as part of the culture. You know, we want prevention versus reactive. And it really doesn't have to be intimidating because, again, it's not just a worksite issue. It's not just a summer issue either. We have heat stress indoors as well. So people who work at bakeries, foundries, they are working indoors all year long, and they are working around extremely hot ovens or machines. So the thing that I've been really excited about too is we're taking heat stress out of the outdoor context and moving it indoors, because that is just as important and isn't often highlighted as much.
Yeah, I was going to say I hadn't really thought of that either. I mean, I watching some construction workers outside my window, and obviously they start very early, but I was trying to get a glimpse of what they're wearing. So what sort of PPE do, you guys have that is recommended for these patients who are, or people who are out in the heat all the time?
Yeah. So we definitely, a lot of them are required to wear PPE already. So a hard hat, the lime vests or lime shirts, we can actually use some of those requirements, and we've created solutions that actually conform to those requirements as well. So if you're wearing a hard hat or a safety helmet, you have probably the glare of the sun beating down on you, on your neck as well. So we always, always, always talk about sun protection. So we also have a sunscreen line that we do at Ergodyne as well. So we always say skin protection is really, really important. Not everybody likes sunscreen. Not everybody wants to wear sunscreen. So can we start choosing UPF rated materials? So ultraviolet protective factor, that's specific to textiles. SPF is sun protective factor, so specific to sunscreen. So a lot of places you'll see people kind of fully covered up. And a lot of people go, well, why wouldn't you wear short sleeves? We're trying to choose performance fabrics and materials that are really, really good at soaking up moisture. So we use performance fabrics that are maybe hydrophobic. They don't like water. So as soon as that sweat gets in the material, it'll evaporate. Our body's natural way of cooling itself down is sweating. So anytime we can work to help our body get that sweat off the body faster, it's going to continue to cool our body down. Because as that moisture evaporates, it takes heat from the surrounding area, and that's how it cools our body down. So anytime you can have some sun protection. So we do like the brim shades that go over your hard hat, give you a little bit of that brim focus, add a shade to the back. We do, vests and shirts that are super lightweight, again, using those performance materials, helping basically escalate and elevate our body's natural way of cooling itself down. So anytime we can be choosing, these lighter materials, these lighter fabrics that are going to help work with us, that's always going to be a great solution in pretty much any environment. There are some slightly more technical options as well. So one that I recommend a lot, it works really great indoors, high humidity, there's no airflow, maybe I'm in a tight confined space, that would be phase change. So a lot of people have maybe seen this in the form of an ice pack or something along those lines. They often get conflated to being ice. It actually is a formula specifically created to maintain a certain temperature. So in our line, for instance, we have our set at 64 degrees. So about 30 degrees below the body temperature. So it's going to slowly pull the heat from our body and provide a prolonged cooling period. This is really, really great for people who have to maybe wear an outer layer. So they have to wear coveralls or Tyvek or painting suits or this, that, and the other. Anything that maybe is help preventing airflow from getting in or that sort of thing. This one, phase change, I say it's agnostic of all environments. Some of our cooling stuff
What
is
is it?
based
Is it
on,
a shirt or what do you mean?
actually, let me grab, I
Yeah.
have one sitting right here.
Yeah.
So this is one
Oh,
of our phase change packs. This is like truly a pack format. We also have ones that come in a vest. So you would just slide that over your uniform, over a t-shirt, that sort of thing. A lot of people, when they touch it or feel it, they're like, Well, it to be wearing an ice cube, that can be a shock to the system as well. So what this does is, again, it takes that body temperature, slowly absorbs the radiant heat, and then melts over time. So 30 degrees below the body temperature, again, it's not going to feel freezing cold, but it provides just that little extra level of taking that heat from the core and dispersing it. So that's a really great option. I will say a lot of these other cooling options we have utilize evaporative cooling. So if you have high levels of humidity or low levels of airflow, some of those are a little bit harder to perform. You might have to get them other options. It's really kind of about understanding your environment and then which technology is best suited for that environment.
Yeah, this is very cool. I wasn't expecting to get to see the I guess I don't know what to call it, device or thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some product, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. So obviously you have a very important message that to be, relayed here. And I think it's very important with Tampa Bay area too. So I mean, I know you've already kind of said it, but what's one simple prevention tip that people can use today before heading out for a run, a job site, or, someone's soccer game or something like that?
Definitely. So drink as much water as possible, throughout your entire day. Again, don't just drink it right before you're about to go for the run. Keep that body hydrated, and really it's about taking action, I would say, just so people have the understanding so that they can react when they see somebody else that they know go down from this. And it doesn't have to be intimidating. Really what we're hoping to do with our campaign is equipping people with the confidence that they know what maybe is happening. And heat stress is such a personal thing. It's very, very different than a lot of the other risks that we try to mitigate. So, a helmet is a helmet. It's going to be put on the same. You're protecting from objects dropping on your head. Heat stress. I may be on different medication. Maybe I drank last night. Maybe I'm not hydrated enough. There's just so many different factors that are super personal with heat stress. I think that's why it's lagged a little bit with some of the compliance and regulatory stuff. It's really hard to make an overarching statement of, what works for me versus what works for you. But there are those tried and true methods, the water, rest, and shade, really just encouraging. If you feel off, nobody knows your body better than yourself. So take some time to really see what your body is feeling. Again, if it's not feeling good, stop, take a break, have someone you trust that can monitor your symptoms and signs, and just try to get into a cool area if possible. Again, just anytime we can get out of the direct sun, keep hydrating. That's really what we're trying to get the message across with people.
Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about was like heat related cramps. And I mean, we
Mhm.
were talking about hydration, and we shouldn't, just or not mention, the importance of electrolyte repletion too.
Yes.
So I don't know. What do you think about all these new hydration packets and things like that?
Boy, there's a huge market for them now.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many options exist. I do get asked every now and again, like, should we be doing electrolytes? Should we be doing water? Again, it depends. There's not a perfect answer. If you are getting a balanced diet and you are getting, those electrolytes through your food, maybe electrolyte replenishment isn't as much of a need, but some people don't, some people have different lifestyles and the food that they eat doesn't replenish all those electrolytes. What I see on job sites a lot is pickles, freezy pops, a lot of these things that are cold, snacky things anyway. So it encourages people to actually take a break and, get some electrolyte replenishment. I will say I'm not an expert in electrolytes, but there are a million of them now. And it seems like there's something for everybody.
Yeah. I would say personally, I had a lot of cramping after like long races and things like that,
Hmm.
especially when I was, breastfeeding my kids. And it was really important, obviously, to stop and then replenish with electrolytes. And it's interesting also, not just maybe someone who's breastfeeding, but other people who are more at risk for these heat stroke and heat things. I mean, you mentioned medications and medical conditions, but sometimes we
Hmm.
just don't really know who's at more risk. And it might just be the fact that they weren't prepared by hydrating themselves ahead of time and things like that. But,
Hmm.
some people are more prone to it than others. And I don't know why, unless taking out those other factors. So, kind of like you're doing, promoting the education so they can recognize what symptoms and signs are of concern when exposed to this extreme heat situations. So what you guys are doing is amazing. So I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to add to share with our listeners?
No, just kind of putting it out there. Regulations come and go, but we know that we don't need a regulation to look out for ourselves, look out for our family, look out for our coworkers. So hopefully everyone can, take a few points away from today. And, they say millennials are the most hydrated generation. I have my emotional support water bottle with me at all times. So yep, love it. So yeah, I would definitely say, it's more important than you think it is. Everybody talks about the body being made of, a majority of water. It is true. And if we are not replenishing that and replacing it, our body's going to let us know.
I truly believe that as well. I would share that I don't really leave my house until I've drank 32 ounces of water typically, because I know I'm not going to get it in, necessarily throughout the day, depending upon what I'm doing. So that's like
Right.
minimum.
Yep.
But yeah, so where can people find you and your company if they want to find your products or follow you or anything?
Absolutely. So you can go to our website for sure, ergodyne.com. If you want to look at heat stress specifically, ergodyne.com/heat-stress. We talk about our technology, the risks, what is OSHA talking about? And then, a lot of people, we're finding that it goes from workday to the weekend. So what people are using on the job sometimes walks off the job site and they are using it at home, mowing their lawn, doing landscaping. There's a lot of stuff that actually applies not just from an industrial perspective, but that can be used at home. So I am definitely the neighborhood dork that is always wearing my stuff. Everyone in the neighborhood now knows. They're like, oh yeah, Lexi's testing out more cooling products. So that is something I will say we do extremely a ton too, is we are out there testing this stuff every day. So definitely ergodyne.com. We sell through distribution. So a lot of safety professionals recognize the name Granger, Fastenal, a lot of those types of accounts too. So we are out there. We're on Amazon as well, and you can buy directly from our website too.
Very cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And I would say I totally agree. And you got a nice job perk of being able to try everything out. So that's pretty cool. But my husband, when he does the mowing of the lawn and all that stuff, he gets the full gear and the sweat wicking equipment. So it's good.
Mm-hmm.
He also is practicing that. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing everything you know about heat and illness and your company. And it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, we'll put all the information in the show notes and share it with our listeners. And everybody stay tuned for next week's episode.